Thank you very much indeed. Moving to members' question time. We only have 30 minutes for questions, so members should ensure that supplemental questions are genuine questions rather than speeches. And the first question, Leah Pollock, Councillor Pollock. Do you have a supplemental question, Councillor Pollock? Okay, there's a mic coming to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to the Leader for his answer to my question. I have a quick supplemental. What does the Leader believe is the likely impact of the London Fire Brigade Commissioner's proposal to remove a fire engine from the Old Kent Road fire station?
Did you hear that question? Okay.
I did, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's very similar to the question that's on the question paper. So I kind of will repeat my answer. But I think there is a wider issue, which I can talk about a bit more. I mean, Southwark has suffered considerably through the loss of fire appliances and fire stations over the last couple of years. And in a part of London where the density of housing and building is increasing year on year, and where our population is increasing year on year, and where we've had tragically a history of death in fires in recent times, it does seem a very surprising move that the Commissioner is once again looking to reduce the service provided by the fire authority in this borough. And it is truly regrettable that effectively the bottom line is dictating the level of service that's being provided by the fire service, rather than response times and rather than by the service which the residents of our borough need.
Thank you. Councillor Rijan's not here, so question 3, Councillor Jane Lyons. Do you have a supplemental question?
Thank you, Leader, for your answer. My supplemental question is fairly brief. Could I please be put in touch with the officers who have had the meetings with the railway companies, and also be more informed about the stakeholder meeting which went past without any being noticed at all locally? No knowledge of that, I'm afraid. So could we pursue that one? I take the point about funding, but we do get continuing pressure from residents on accessibility at that station, and obviously ongoing continuing debates about transport and access and getting around on it, which is a problem. Thank you.
I want to thank Councillor Lyons for the supplemental question. Yes, I will ensure those details are forwarded to you. I know that the general issue of rail services is coming up later in the meeting, but it is a matter of great concern, I think, throughout the borough. The rail services are not adequate for the increasing population I was just talking about moments ago. We are hopeful, of course, to see a Camberwell Thameslink station being delivered within the next few years as part of Thameslink improvements, and that will help, but it won't help if the trains that arrive at that station are full and there's no room for additional passengers to get on. I have asked in recent days for a meeting with Peter Hendy, who's now in charge of Network Rail, to raise some concerns with him about transport, and particularly train transport in the borough, and I'll keep all colleagues advised of how that meeting goes when it happens, and the outcome of that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Octavia Lamb, do you have a supplementary question? You do? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to the Leader for your answer. Just an extra question. What long-term impact do you think the initiative will have for children in Southwark, not only improving early childhood literacy, but also encouraging parents and carers to spend this extra one-on-one time with children?
I want to thank Councillor Lamb for her supplementary question. I think it's hugely important. We know that one of the ongoing barriers to improved employment prospects for too many of our residents is the fact that they simply don't have basic literacy and maths. And if, through a scheme like this, which is aimed primarily at children, of course, up to the age of 5, if that means that parents actually can begin to tackle some of the problems maybe that they face in their lives but haven't yet been able to admit, that will be a huge, huge benefit to this borough. English and maths and acquiring basic skills so that you can improve your employment prospects, absolutely vital to so many of our residents, particularly English as a second language also, for instance. So the fact that you might well have parents sitting down, reading with their children, from that very early age is wonderful. I think this is an absolutely terrific, terrific initiative, and I want to thank Dolly Parton and Diana Flight, who are delivering this for our borough. Fantastic.
Thank you. Councillor Damien O'Brien, do you have a supplementary question? There's a microphone come to you.
And thank you to the leader for your answer. With the feasibility study underway, which is good news, is it envisaged that the emission-based charges will be applied both to the holders of estate permits and highways permits?
I want to thank Councillor O'Brien for his supplementary question. I don't know the answer to that, probably because we haven't reached that stage of decision-making yet in the process. But it is obviously something that does need to be taken into account. Presumably it's Councillor Merrill who's leading on this, and what I will ask Councillor Merrill to do is to get in touch with you, to have a conversation about how that might work, and what you think the benefits and disbenefits of the scheme might be on housing permit, with regard to housing permits and more general permits.
Thank you. Councillor Gavin Edwards, do you have a supplementary question? There's a microphone behind you.
I thank the leader for his answer to my question. On Sunday, Labour councillors joined thousands of other people marching against the Housing and Planning Bill. The LGA is now suggesting that the government's plans are going to mean that we're going to lose 88,000 homes. Does the leader of the council agree that it is wrong and immoral to force councils to sell homes to fund right to buy for housing association tenants, particularly as there's no way of preventing those homes from ending up in the hands of private landlords?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Edwards, for that supplementary question. I agree absolutely with the sentiments in your supplementary question. I've made my views clear, I think previously at Council Assembly meetings, of my view of the implications of the Housing and Planning Bill, particularly with regard to the forced sale of council houses. It's wrong. We have a housing crisis in London at the moment, yet the only policy that this government is interested in is home ownership. They believe that that is the answer to all of the housing problems of London, of the country. We know, every one of us in this chamber knows that that is not the answer for the bulk of Southwark's residents. So we will continue to campaign, and I'm sure members right across this chamber will continue to campaign against the effects of the Housing and Planning Bill. We've been a pretty prudent landlord. You might not agree with everything that we've done over the years, but we've been a pretty prudent landlord. And I think it would be a great shame if we lost the opportunity to manage our stock as we see fit, and to put the interests of our residents, both current and future, at the heart of what we want to do as a council. And this Housing and Planning Bill does exactly that. It takes power out of our hands. Just today, again, the government on education just wants to take power out of the hands of local governments, centralise it in terms of how schools are run. They're doing the same with housing in pursuit of dogmatic policies which are not in the interest of our residents. And we should oppose it, we'll continue to oppose it, and put the interests of Southwark at the heart of all that we do.
Thank you. Councillor Newhouse Samurai, do you have a supplemental question?
Thanks very much to the leader for his answer. My question is about tall buildings, and if the leader had been at the Birmingham Rotherhithe Community Council last night, there's a real fear around the Camden Water Master Plan and the impact of tall buildings there. And I think one of the concerns about the changes to the new Southwark plan is some of the changes in definitions to tall buildings and areas of where they are. And I can understand some of the reasons for doing that. I just wonder if the leader actually has any concerns about the changes in the Southwark plan in terms of effectively allowing officers or having less clarity about where tall buildings go and what they actually mean, because I think that's actually having an impact in terms of fear for the community about what can happen on their doorstep at the moment.
I want to thank Councillor Samurai for her supplementary question. I think this is a really interesting subject, and of course it's one that is concerning lots of Londoners at the moment. What does the skyline of London look like? I'm somebody who believes that in order for us to be a vibrant city, the skyline does have to change sometimes. It does have to reflect the fact that London is a vibrant city. It's not, preserved in aspic, and that we want to see investment, particularly coming into parts of London which haven't seen it historically. And it always makes me chuckle a little bit that some of the most vociferous opposition to tall buildings coming into Southwark is from those parts of London which are kind of fixed and they're all okay and they're all fine over there. And it's either a little bit of you can't have it down there, or a little bit of envy, I think, sometimes generates some of the opposition. But I hear what she says about local concern, and I hear what she says about the Southwark plan. I think what we've tried to do is, I think, really make it clear in terms of, for officers and for everyone, as to where it's suitable tall buildings to go. We've had principal clusters that we have encouraged in the past. London Bridge, Blackfriars, the Elephant, Canada Water, I think is likely to become a cluster of tall buildings going forward, and that's allowed for within the area action plan. But there are other locations, junctions, kind of wayfinders, as it were, where a tall building may be appropriate. And that's the approach that we have always taken when somebody's coming with an application to talk to us about it. And we really force them to justify why you want a tall building in that particular location. And they do have to jump through hoops and really make their case. And quite often, they won't get what they want, and they won't get the tall building where they want it because they're not able to make the case. Because we are mindful of the impact that it does have on existing communities. We are mindful of the impact that it might have on rights to light, all those sorts of issues, and the effect on the existing community there. So I think what the New Southwark plan does is I think, makes it clearer what our policy is. It isn't a free-for-all across the borough. That would not work at all. It would not be appropriate. But it does say, effectively, in addition to the cluster areas that I've already mentioned, there may be points where tall buildings are appropriate, but you've got to make the case for it. And you've got to make the case for a building with exceptional design, exceptional quality, which actually adds to Southwark rather than detracts from it anyway. I think there's a point in there also, and it kind of snuck through in the way you put the question, in terms of officers. And we're going to come on to this a bit later, but this is a member-run administration. And I think we all want this to be a member-run council, a member-run organisation. So it really is the members who take responsibility for the decisions that we make. It is members who drive through policy, the policy on viability assessments. That's come from us as members, absolutely. And so, it's come from... No, I don't... Well, Adele, you can claim the credit, and I'm sure you will, because Lib Dems love claiming the credit, we all know that. But actually, if there were no members on our side who were also insisting, saying, this is what we want to see, this is what we want to see done, it would not happen. Nothing happens from opposition, remember that. We're mindful of that. But, as I say, this is about clarification. Members leading through the process of people first coming to us, and members leading in the decision-taking planning committee. And that's how this council should remain. But this is not, as I say, a free-for-all for tall buildings across our borough. That message should go back to our communities. But it's about giving clearer definition and clearer guidance to those who do want to build in our borough.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Maisie Anderson, do you have a supplemental question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. I'd like to thank the leader for his answer to my question on the regeneration of shopping parades in the borough. As a councillor representing Newington Ward, a lot of the residents there use the Walworth Road for most of their shopping needs. So I was wondering, as my supplemental, if the leader could explain how this funding will help to support small businesses on the Walworth Road and encourage people to shop locally.
I want to thank Councillor Anderson for her supplementary. It's a very funny atmosphere here, isn't it? Yeah, the lights are shining and everyone's kind of really well behaved and really quiet. Yeah. I'm sure that will fall apart before the evening is out. Yeah. The question was about the Walworth Road, and which is of great. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Yes. And the Walworth Road, one of our most important streets, one of our most important roads in the borough, which has been probably too sadly neglected for too long in terms of attention that the council has directly given to it. And I'm pleased that the £2 million regeneration fund will be making a massive difference to the Walworth Road. I think we will see genuine funding coming from that to revitalise the high street. We've already seen.
Time's almost up.
Time's almost up. We've already seen. We believe that it will support the independent shops and businesses that are already there. We'll carry on doing it. There's no bell, you see, is there? You should have. If you'd said ring, I would have known one.
Okay, ring.
And of course, we've also seen the credit union open at last on Walworth Road. A Labour council delivering what we promised we would.
Thank you very much. Okay, the time for questions to the Leader has now ended, so we'll move on to questions from community councils. Councillor Bill Williams, to the Cabinet Member for Environment and the Public Realm. Councillor Bill Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I do have a follow-up question. Can the Cabinet Member give us any reassurance that any further loss of trees in the Bermondsey and Rotherhithe Community Council area, and in particular around Canada Water with the regeneration, will be reinstated and reinstated with the right and correct trees as befitting the area?
Thank you for your supplementary. I can reassure you that any tree loss is within our tree strategy and we will replace it in accordance with that. And obviously, Mark within the regeneration, Councillor Williams within the regeneration will be hopefully getting more out of Canada Water. So, as well as part of the 14,000 you already have, let's hope you have a lot more.
Okay, Councillor Williams is absent, Kieran Williams is absent, so Councillor John Hartley, do you have a supplemental question? Sorry, Cabinet Member for Community and Safeties.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, I do. And thank you to the Cabinet Member for focusing on residential burglaries in his reply. At a recent policing and safety themed Dulwich Community Council, this was easily the #1 concern amongst attendees, much higher even than the very legitimate concerns about the possible northern movement of the Croydon cat killer, which is a serious concern to you laugh, you're safe in Rotherhithe. I wonder whether the Cabinet Member could confirm that as well as the proactive work that's happening between the police, the community wardens and the local councillors to promote activities such as smart water to reduce burglary, that we can also engage in some publicity action, because we're seeing large swathes even of the Dulwich area that haven't been affected yet by the current sweep of burglaries that are very, very concerned about it, and we need to get that message out.
I thank Councillor Hartley for the supplementary question itself. You raise a very important issue in itself, and certainly I'm willing to go back and certainly work with officers and yourselves and local ward councillors to see what more can be done in terms of additional campaign, so that actually all residents can be aware of the issue, and if residents are at the front of ensuring that their community is safe, we can make sure that we do reduce the burglary rate in the area itself. So certainly I'll take it back and look at what campaign we can have there.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson Situ is away, so Councillor Martin Seaton, do you have a supplementary question to the Cabinet Member for Environment and the Public Realm?
I do, Madam Mayor, and thank you for this opportunity. First of all, to thank the Cabinet Member, of course, for attending the Borough of Bankside Wharf Community Council as you are a member, and also for the support you've given us to ensure that we were able to publicise the meeting adequately. Upwards of 200 people attended. I must say, I would also congratulate the Cabinet Member, Mark Williams, for also attending. The issues of both East Street and, of course, the Wharf Town Hall were discussed, and I've got to say that they was a stimulating experience. Can I first of all then ask Cabinet Member this question? How will the Council ensure the ongoing dialogue and consultation with East Street market traders to ensure the improvement to East Street will continue and benefit everyone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Seaton. Yes, I was there on Monday, and it was a great meeting. It's a really exciting time at the moment for East Street. £200,000 being invested. I think we can all admit it's looking a bit tired at the moment, but hopefully this investment will make it a much more vibrant and wonderful place to live. To make that work, we do need to be working with the traders as well, with all the traders there. So we will be holding meetings with them and taking them through the steps. We are looking at giving them new stalls, new old stalls, redeveloping all that. We're looking at sort of bringing in new traders into there and actually making it a lot more vibrant and a lot more interesting place. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone on that, and obviously if you'd like to invite us to your next community council, I'll give you an update on that as well.
Thank you very much. We now move to questions for the Cabinet Member for Environment in the Public Realm, starting with Councillor Michael Mitchell. Do you have a supplemental question, Councillor Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do. May I thank Councillor Merrill for his answer. I know he's visited the ward on a number of occasions and heard at first hand the strength of feeling against the proposals. Does he not agree that the scheme lacks any credibility if it spends £600,000 and yet has no modelling to demonstrate it will lead to any increase in cycling? It will remove between 50 and 100 parking spaces and fails to address the issue of heavy vehicles, especially at peak school start and finish times?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your supplementary. I'm going to have to disagree on you on that one. I think that actually improvements in the cycling is absolutely essential in this borough. We've got so much, we can't fit any more cars on the road. So we do need improved cycling. I am, as you say, I have come into Dulwich quite often over the past few weeks, and I am listening to residents, and where there are real concerns, we will be seeing if we can adapt our designs to meet those concerns. But this is money that's going through the whole of the borough and linking up north, south, east, west, and making sure that everybody can cycle through the borough. Let me just throw a statistic out. At the moment, we have 3.4% modal shift in cycling. That's 26,000 journeys per day. We want to get that to 10%. That's 76,000 journeys. The only way we're going to do that is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Put the infrastructure in for people to use, and they will come and use it. Build it, they will come. Or we just wait until enough people are on there and our roads are fully congested. This is a way of we're thinking ahead in the future, and that's what we need to do, and that's what we are as a council. We think ahead and plan for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Rebecca Lurie. Supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet Member for his response. As a fellow East Walworth councillor, I'm really delighted that there is a pilot going on the Walworth Road, looking at how we can remove some of the rather large bins that take up vast amounts of space and cause disruption to people trying to walk up and down the Walworth Road and use the shops there. Would the Cabinet Member be able to give us some more information about the pilot and what benefits he thinks it will have for Walworth Road in the long term?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Laurie. An update on the pilot today. I've been informed that there now is no larger bins on the Walworth Road. We've taken the last one off this week. So this makes the road, the benefit of this, and part of the reason, it makes the roads a lot cleaner, a lot less smelly, a lot easier for people to get around. It means that disabled people can get up and down the pavement quite easily. People with double buggies. We've got one councillor here that's got a double buggy, and before these bins weren't moved, I would have said she would have struggled quite considerably to get that double buggy up and down that road. Now it's a lot cleaner. Now we've got to go through the phase of looking at now, we've got rid of it, and I want to roll this out throughout the borough. If this works, this is a 3 to 6 month trial. Once we've got the stats, and I think it will work, but it's a bit early days now, if it works, I would like to roll this out to the whole of the borough, step by step, high street by high street, cleaning each high street one bit at a time.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah King, do you have a supplementary question? Microphone's on its way.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for his answer. In addition to that, can the Cabinet Member explain what impact the Council expects both the implementation of the Cycle Quiet Ways and the Southwark Spine to helping increase the number of people choosing to cycle in the borough, as well as improving the quality of cycle journeys?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor King. Yes, as I said, the impact is I want to get cycling, or as a council, not just me on my own, we need to get cycling up to 10%. This will have a major impact on the environment we live in. The quiet ways are not, they're a cycling strategy idea, but they're not just about cycling. They actually reduce traffic, slow traffic down, make the area a lot quieter and a nicer place to walk for everyone. So this is, although it's umbrellaed under cycle strategy and umbrellaed under cycling money, this actually benefits more than just cyclists, which is a great part of this project.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Kirby, do you have a supplementary question?
I'd like to thank Cabinet members so much for coming out down to Village Ward, where you've helped a lot of people in the community really understand the works that you're doing at the council to make it safer, and also with the cycle quiet ways. However, with regards to my supplemental, I was contacted by the chair of Dulwich Society, who has raised a number of safety issues and concerns following the completion of the works on Townley Road. Can the Cabinet member confirm that the council is dealing with the issues that he is concerned about safety issues at the junction, and whether the council will maintain ongoing dialogue with the Dulwich Society regarding this junction? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your supplementary. This was a project that was actually started before my time. It had a difficult conception and an even more difficult birth. I think you can say that. The reports I'm getting back from the schools and that, it's actually improved quite a lot for people to be able to walk. In fact, the mobile shift at the schools for walking is getting a lot better there. If there are any safety issues, we've got to do our last safety audit on it, which we will do, which is normally done on three months after the implementation of the scheme. We'll do that, we'll bring up safety audit. But also, if the chair of the Dulwich Society would like to get in contact with me and give me his feedback and details, then I will look into his comments as well.
Thank you. Councillor Rosie Chanel, do you have a supplementary question? Hold on, there's a microphone just coming to you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet Member for his answer. I'm slightly surprised, though, that he sounded so positive in his telling of how we're doing in terms of our recycling performance, because looking at the latest figures provided by all London councils to the Department for Energy, Food and Rural Affairs last December, it looks to me that Southwark's recycling rate has only gone up by 0.3% last year, and therefore we've resoundingly failed to meet the council's own target of an increase in 2%. Can he confirm that that is the case and explain a bit more about what's being done to build on that improvement?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your supplementary. I'm going to be honest here. Yes, that is the case. We are one of the best boroughs in this city for recycling. That is really, and we're stagnated. A lot of other boroughs have dropped. The reason for this is actually the cost of actually getting rid of recycling. The actual being able to sell it on. Low-grade recycling is becoming more and more difficult to sell on. Hopefully that will improve. We're also starting up a scheme where we're looking at landlords, private landlords, and see if we can incentivise them, a bit carrot and stick, and see if we can get them recycling more. But the good news here is this recycling that we can't sell on doesn't go to landfill. It actually goes to the cell chip up the road there, and that is used to heat 2,500 homes. So it's a recovery, not ideal, but 100% of our rubbish goes to either recycling or recovery. None of it goes to landfill in the last month. So we're working very hard at getting recycling back up, but the key here is actually none of it goes to landfill.
Thank you. Councillor Del Morris, do you have a supplemental?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank the Cabinet Member for his answer. Obviously, residents are asked to put their black bags out the night before because recycling refuse collections can often come very early in the morning. We have problems with mice, with rats. I'm sure everybody saw the Twitter thing about the alleged 4-foot long rat this week. But we also have, as I said, alleged. We also have urban foxes. Has the Cabinet member looked at any other authorities to see whether or not that anybody has any innovative ways of dealing with the black bags that are put out where there isn't provision for wheelie bins or there isn't an alternative? Have you looked at what other authorities might do to solve these sorts of problems?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your supplementary. Yes, we have looked at other authorities. In fact, Ian Smith, who is our officer that looks into this, has looked at other authorities, one of them being Edinburgh, and how they deal with their particular road. We are looking at starting a scheme in Henshaw Street. We're looking at the feasibility of that to actually look at how we can actually have bins within the street, within car parking space, and how this can be designed. It's really in its early stages, but we are looking at it. It is an ongoing problem in this borough of how we get rid of rubbish and black sacks. So we'll be doing it. And I think that was that the bell?
30 seconds.
Right. Okay. I will sit down and see if we can quickly sneak in another one then.
If you wanted to, well, yeah. Okay, I think it's too late anyway. Thank you very much for your responses. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Councillor rules. Okay, so no, formally, the question time has now ended, so we'll move on to the next item, which is 3.1, the pay policy statement. The recommendations are formally moved, and there are no amendments to the report. So if no member wishes to speak on this item, we shall move to the vote on recommendations set out in the report. Is that agreed? Okay, good. So I shall now move to the vote. Those in favour of the report recommendations, please indicate. Okay, that's great. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that is carried. Okay, 3.2 constitutional issues. As part of the programme motion, the meeting gave its consent to the amendment of the report recommendations. That is, to agree paragraphs 1 to 6 and the withdrawal of paragraph 7 of the report. I shall now invite Councillor Sarah King, Chair of the Constitutional Steering Panel, to present the revised recommendations. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm extremely conscious there's lots of people here tonight who want to make contributions on this agenda item. But before doing so, I would like to spend a few minutes highlighting the recommendations made in this report, which brings together some significant work undertaken by officers and consultation of the Constitutional Steering Panel. The backdrop of the constitutional changes proposed, as we all know very well, is the continued attack by Tory government on local authorities such as Southwark and our financing. The report includes the following recommendations: a small reduction in council assembly meetings, delegating council tax base setting to Cabinet, and reducing the frequency of Cabinet meetings. In recognition of the significant changes to the standards regime, it combines the roles and the functions of the Standards Committee with that of Audit and Governance. A review of whether council assembly meetings can be combined with leader and Cabinet member question time is included, and tonight shows yet again how popular this format is with the public. And it also identifies how to make better use of technology through the use of audio in the website. These constitutional changes together achieve savings without jeopardising local democracy, scrutiny or public engagement. In addition to the constitutional changes, the report includes the proposal to introduce a loss of office payment for Cabinet members. I am very confident we're about to hear lots from the Liberal Democrats about their issues with these proposals. But what I suspect they are unlikely to talk about is what the proposal will deliver. We are lucky in Southwark to have councillors from a range of backgrounds and different ages, and this will ensure we continue to have a Cabinet that reflects this too. Being a Cabinet member is a full-time role, which comes with significant responsibility. In other parts of the country, this means Cabinet positions are restricted to the affluent, the retired, and overwhelmingly to old white men. The proposal will provide support to help all Southwark councillors, now and in the future, no matter what their circumstances, to consider and take on these roles. It is yet another step to ensuring the Cabinet reflects the communities we represent. It supports younger councillors who often have to take more risks at that stage in their careers. It will also encourage those in what are very normal situations of full-time employment to stand for Cabinet. Those with regular financial responsibilities, such as children, caring for older relatives, paying the rent or a mortgage, just like the vast majority of people we represent. It will ensure the Cabinet reflects our communities, supports better decision-making and the understanding of the impact that this government is having on local services, housing and schools. We won't hear from the Lib Dems that the funding for this scheme is relatively small. The figures mentioned earlier have no basis from which this has been developed and has been found from existing budgets. And finally, I suspect we're about to hear absolutely nothing from the Lib Dems about Simon Hughes' redundancy payments. Yes, this proposal is the first of its type, something which our group is proud of and further demonstrates our commitment to deliver fairer future promises to Southwark.
Thank you. We have one amendment to the report. Councillor David Hubber, to move Amendment A, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are moving this amendment because, largely because we think this whole situation has been somewhat unsatisfactorily dealt with. The agenda for the Constitutional Steering Panel did not reach members until 2 days before. We had no indication from the majority party that there was even such a thing under consideration. It would have been useful if we had some advance information, because we're not actually opposed to all the constitutional changes that are proposed. Some of them make sense, but it would have been much more preferable if we had the opportunity to think about them more carefully and to give them proper consideration. There's no discussion at all with us, and I think the whole thing was carried out in a rather shambolic way. I don't think I was the only member of the steering panel who thought that. We now got to the situation where we're going to have to look again at the proposal to merge the Audit and Governance Committee with the Standards Committee, presumably because that, again, is not ready. The proposals for the nominations for the honorary freedom of the borough were bounced on us. We received details, or I received details of that the same afternoon of the meeting. I don't think any member here really would think that was a satisfactory way of dealing with things. The council, I think, needs to be asking itself why it's unpicking certain aspects of the Constitution and making itself less accountable and transparent in the process. I think we're working, Madam Mayor, towards a democratic deficit. We are reducing the number of meetings. Okay, there may be very good reasons for that. And on the other hand, we're having to cram a whole Council Assembly meeting into a short time this evening. And well, if the constitutional changes go through, we're going to have to be doing that again in the future. We're also looking at the possibility of reducing the effectiveness of community councils. I think what we should be doing is to be more transparent. We should be giving us better scrutiny, and I think we should be spending more money on the scrutiny process, and not to reduce the role of community councils, but to enhance them. So for that reason, I hope that all members will think very carefully about this, and the members obviously will remember some of the things they used to throw at us when it came to discussing members' allowances. In fact, when we were in the administration, we introduced the system of maternity payments for cabinet members. So we're not entirely unsympathetic to the role of cabinet members, and we want to see, like members opposite, we want to see a good cross-section of the community represented in cabinet, but we think this is the wrong time to be doing this at a time of economic stringency. I'll ask all members to support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor James Barber to second Amendment A, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Initially, I felt sympathetic to the idea of helping fellow councillors when they lose their main income. People do have to live, and I've seen hardship from other councillors in the past as a result of losing their role. I think other councillors also rely on non-cabinet SRAs to make ends meet. Then I start to think about why someone would suddenly not have their position. if one of you was to resign, you'd know months in advance you were going to resign and you start making plans. But under this proposal, you'd get a golden goodbye. I don't know anyone else in a role where if they resign, they'd get a golden goodbye, certainly not from the public purse. Presumably you think it's also right that when if someone resigns, he resigned. Or is it at the discretion of the leader of the council or the chief executive? And it starts to get very messy. With regard to the proposal for payments who are sacked by your leader or colleagues at an AGM, well, why not move your AGM to give 3 months before it is now, and then they'd get 3 months notice that their role is coming to an end so they can cope? I see no justification on what you're doing. And being trailblazers at a time of hardship for the country, that seems even more bizarre. If you choose not to bring forward your AGM, then should residents be paying such proposed golden goodbyes because you're not all more organised? And I've certainly recommended to our group as a result of this proposal that we should bring our AGM forward by 3 months, because it would make a difference to people, not many in the group that gets SRAs that know in advance. I'm not sure how much it will cost, and I like the idea that there's free money that was sloshing around with no other use. That's an unusual way of viewing public finances. So overall, I see no justification for your proposals to award new payments to cabinet members if people manage the situation and your party better. Bring forward your AGM. If the leader thinks someone isn't up to the role, he's probably having one-to-ones. There'll be loads of indications that you're not going to keep the role. I don't see why this is necessary if you're well managed.
Okay, the debate is now open for members who wish to speak on Amendment A or the report. And I have some people here. Councillor Peter John, and then Councillor Fiona Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, there's never a right time, is there, to do anything with councillors' allowances, even during the good times when the money was sloshing in during the years of Lib Dem reign. We criticised you heavily. Of course we did. That's politics, and I wouldn't expect anything less from you, that you oppose something as terrible as this proposal tonight, some minor compensation for loss of office. And it is minor and modest. I think the cost over the last few years, on average, about £3,000. That's a small amount of money in our budget. And why are we doing it? It is because, as I said earlier on, we want to be a member-led council. We want a cabinet of full-time cabinet members who are running this council and making decisions, not abrogating it to officers, not having to force members to go out and work as well as being a cabinet member in order to make ends meet and to ensure that they can cope if things do not continue for them as a cabinet member. I thought, actually, in 2010, it was wrong. It was wrong that a leader and cabinet members from the previous administration, some of them were without work for a year. I do not think that is right. I don't think it's fair that there is no cushion for them. That's a fundamental question of what is fair. I didn't think that was fair, and I think this proposal begins to correct and right that. There are still councillors who will not consider, even with the system that we have now, will not consider coming into the cabinet because they cannot take the risk of giving up their job, their well-paid job, with a pension, with other benefits, in order to come into the cabinet because of the risk that they might only be in the cabinet for a year. That's still a conversation that I have with members. There should be nothing which is a barrier to good and able and capable councillors right across this chamber, if you were ever to be running this authority, heaven forbid, again, from putting themselves forward for cabinet roles. Councillor Colley, I hope, will give us some details about the figures from Parliament. But, you know, a very similar situation. Ministers lose office, cabinet members lose office, and they are compensated, rightly compensated in some instances, not all instances, for that loss of office. In situations where somebody are removed from office, such as John Ferrari, they would not be paid this. And if they wanted to come back and claim it, they could take it to Standards Committee, and I'm sure that they would fail in their bid. That is why the provision is in here for Standards Committee to determine. So As I said, there's never a right time, never a good time to talk about councils' allowances. But I think this is a step forward in taking this council into the 20th century, well, not in the 21st century certainly, with the way we treat ourselves, and making cabinet members properly respected, both in office and when they leave office.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fiona Colley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, we never have a sort of edifying debate about members' allowances or the allowances scheme, and I'm sure it will be no different tonight to any of the many previous times in my career on the council that we have had these debates. But the reality is that, just like everyone else, councillors have families to support, rent or mortgages to pay, and are in very often, certainly in cabinet, particularly dependent on their allowance as their sole source of income. What we're proposing tonight in the recommendations is a payment in lieu of notice of between 1 and 3 months' pay. And to be clear, because we had some odd figures quoted earlier this evening, £20,000. Well, it most certainly is nothing like that. As Councillor John said, the figures on average would be about £3,000. My calculations, the maximum is £8,500. So it's absolutely simply nowhere near 20,000. No, it's a maximum of 9.
Sorry.
It's a maximum of 9. 13 weeks is the maximum. Councillor
Sorry,
may not have read the report. And I want to be clear. I mean, we aren't talking about large sums, but we did consider what happens whilst there are no other councils that do this. I think it is reasonable to have a look at the situation for members of Parliament. And, there is a Member of Parliament, a former Member of Parliament, who lost his seat recently, and he was able to claim considerable sums. And I think rightly so. I don't think he should have been in a position where he was left in the lurch and with no income, having lost his position. £33,000 of severance pay he was entitled to, the first £30,000 tax-free, 3 months of ministerial salary, and of course also a pension, which councillors are now, under new legislation brought forward by government, not permitted to be in the local government pension scheme. And when we talk of members who might leave under unfortunate circumstances or under a cloud, we have put in provisions in this report so that Standards Committee will be able to prevent, in such circumstances, members from claiming these allowances. And this is in quite contrast to the situation in government where Chris Hume was able to claim £17,000 after he resigned to unsuccessfully fight the charges of perverting the course of justice and then go to jail. So I really think there's an air of hypocrisy coming from the other side. We are looking to put in place something reasonable that allows for any member of the council to consider becoming a cabinet member and to have some financial security alongside that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rosie Chanel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say, I can't quite believe what I'm hearing this evening. Payoffs which could stretch potentially to tens of thousands of pounds for cabinet members who lose their jobs either because they choose to resign or presumably because they have been found to be doing their job incredibly poorly. I mean, this is just not something which is representative of how most working people would be able to expect. And at the same time, it comes at the same time as cutting vital frontline services to the council. It doesn't take particularly hard sums to realise that if we weren't keeping money in reserves to fund this new scheme, then of course we would be able to lessen the impact of cuts on vital services like youth service, like street cleaning and everything else that we debated last month. The hypocrisy would almost be laughable, Madam Mayor, if it wasn't so deeply serious. Anyway, my colleagues I know are going to say more about this throughout this evening, but the actual thing I wanted to focus on is another element of these proposals. Plans to cut back on council assemblies and cabinet meetings. Madam Mayor, I fear there is a growing democratic deficit in Southwark. We've debated a lot over the years, the cutbacks and the merging of... We've debated a lot, Madam Mayor, we've debated a lot over the last few years, the cutbacks to local community councils, and the lack of consultation on many contentious proposals in this council, and I fear that some of the proposals in this scheme are going to make this worse. Cutting back council meetings means there are fewer opportunities to ask questions of councillors, fewer opportunities for deputations, and now I know that maybe sometimes it's uncomfortable, maybe sometimes it's difficult for cabinet members to have members of the public come here and challenge you.
Point of order. Okay, I think the point has been made.
I would now like to apologise for speaking out loud when I have heard something that is so patently untrue and wrong. I will now curb my enthusiasm for pointing out inaccuracies.
That's very helpful, Councillor Donovan. Thank you very much. Yes, you can continue, Councillor Schimmel, please. Yeah.
Now, I know that cabinet members might sometimes find it terribly difficult when members of the public come here and try and question you and challenge you on proposals you put forward. None of your party. But it may not be the easiest part of your job, but it is an absolutely essential one. I'm not saying the current setup of meetings we have is perfect. There's definitely room for improvement, and it's absolutely right that we should always be looking and thinking about how we can best engage people and how we can best scrutinise the decisions that the council is making. But I have to say that for the Cabinet to be taking on additional responsibilities under these plans, for instance the consideration of traffic management orders, which is being taken away from local community councils, but then also proposing to have less meetings, I feel like something doesn't add up, and that actually the inevitable conclusion... Yeah, you can appreciate I can interrupt.
No, we'll give you extra time.
What?
We have.
Anyway, I'll finish one.
Please, 30 seconds.
No, I don't think that.
Well, carry on talking.
I think it seems as if there may be a risk that not as much time and effort is going to be made to some of these vital decisions. I would feel more confident if there was a corresponding proposal to increase community councils or scrutiny functions. But without these safeguards, the proposals we've just read like an attempt to further centralise powers with cabinet members and take them away from local councillors and residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Adele Morris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As one of the Cabinet members who lost her Cabinet position in the 2010 elections, and as a mother of 2 children, I fully understand that it is difficult, but I'm privileged and was privileged to be a Cabinet member and represent the people of this borough, and I stood for election as a politician. I didn't apply for a job with the council as a council officer, and as a politician I knew exactly what I was doing and what I was getting into. I knew that I was grateful to be given an allowance to conduct my duties on behalf of the people of this borough, and I knew full well that at any time I could be challenged by another member of my group, or I could lose my seat. I find it absolutely disgraceful that what is being used... I'm not looking at a load of old white men here. What is this nonsense about it makes it more equal, and all the whole equalities nonsense in here? I can see 2 women who have children who have been on the cabinet.
Can we allow her to continue? Otherwise we'll have to give her extra time. Please allow her to continue.
I don't agree, basically, with the argument that is being put forward that it will make it easier for people to be cabinet members, because I think we've had good young cabinet members despite not having this protection. And I think, some of your cabinet members have been good, especially Michael. Anyway. As I was saying, what I find appalling is that people who are simply voted off by the leader, voted off by their colleagues, or any reason like that, it's just not acceptable. We're here, we're public servants, and we should be spending public money well. We are privileged to be representing people. We shouldn't be trying to con all of them. Well, when you've handed yours back, I'll hand mine back. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay. The time stipulated on the programme motion is now almost over, so I invite Councillor Sarah King to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just feel that I need to come back on the point about equality. I thought I was clear in what I said, is that it's about providing equality of opportunity for all councillors to be able to consider that choice of being a full-time cabinet member. It is absolutely clear from discussions with other councillors in our group that there is a barrier to making that decision to give up a full-time job while they have to pay rent on their house, possibly a mortgage, and while they have responsibilities, particularly looking after children.
Can we carry... Sorry, if you keep on, the time will... Sorry, excuse me. Councillor Chanel.
Do you want to continue
Councillor
talking
Chanel,
at me
could you
just
stop?
the way you didn't like it happen to you? Oh, sorry, you want to talk?
You shouted down me.
I
down the whole way through my speech.
Can we just... Sorry, Councillor Chanel, can you just stop, please? We have to be out by 10 o'clock. I mean, it's your time. It's your time. Councillor King, do you want to carry on, please?
Yeah, I will. Just to sum up, it's about providing at the level playing field for all members to come forward and stand as cabinet members, regardless of their income and regardless of any other thing that holds them back. I do want to very quickly touch upon the point that Councillor Hubber made about the Constitutional Steering Panel and the distribution of late papers. It's something I've acknowledged both with officers and with Councillor Hubber about the distribution of those reports, but particularly with the issue of the report related to the freedoms. He will also be aware that we held the meeting several days later so that it could be discussed in greater detail. And just finally, I think tonight shows that when you organise a meeting in a different format and invite the public in to ask questions of our cabinet members, it encourages lots more people to our meetings. There's been lots of discussion in response about how there is a democratic deficit, but I find it very difficult to have that conversation when we've had 100 people in the room asking questions of our cabinet members and online.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, so the time allowed for this debate has now ended, and I shall now move to the vote on Amendment A. So those in favour of Amendment A, please indicate. Thank you. Those against? And thank you very much. No abstentions? Okay, so Amendment A is lost. And we shall now move to the vote on the substantive. Those in favour of the substantive motion, please indicate. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. No abstentions, so the substantive motion is carried.
Through you, Madam Mayor, can you indicate who wants their names recorded?
Okay, that's done. Thank you, Councillor Hubber. Right, we now move on to 4.1, building more affordable homes in Southwark. Councillor Adele Morris to move motion number 1. There's a microphone coming to you, Councillor Morris. There's a microphone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too was glad to be on the housing march on Sunday with all the others, representatives from across a whole range of organisations and individuals. And I'm also pleased to be on the LGA board, or one of the LGA boards, which is lobbying the government about the housing and planning bill. I think everyone in this room can agree that we have a housing crisis in London and in Southwark. Not enough new affordable homes are being built, and we're losing council rent homes through right to buy, disposals and demolition. Welfare reforms and a booming population are adding to the pressures on affordable housing. I think too that most of us would agree that the government's proposals in the housing and planning bill will make an already bad situation even worse. In its desperate bid to get Britain to become a nation of homeowners, the government seems willing to see other forms of housing fall by the wayside. For example, councils will be forced to promote starter homes at 20% discount on the market price, and in some cases accept them instead of affordable housing. But they're not a substitute for affordable rented accommodation, and as it currently stands, their purchasers will be able to sell them on the open market after only 5 years. Whilst it's good that the council is planning to build new homes, we should understand the numbers. The council's own figures provided this week show that since May 2010 there have been just 40 new general needs council rent homes built and 18 hidden homes created. This is compared to 1,973 council homes lost through right to buy, disposals or demolition. We've seen new affordable housing given permission to be built off-site at some point in the future, or cash in lieu taken from developers. We've even had situations where planning permission was given for social rent homes, with some RSLs converting them to affordable rent without telling the council. Publicly owned land is being sold to developers for private housing, and sites with planning permission for towers are changing hands at huge profits and then being land banked until the overseas market picks up. We desperately need to do more. This week, we've seen the two leading mayoral candidates set out their housing policies for London. It's clear that in addition to the council's own new home building programme, we need to do more in Southwark. Many of the estates in our borough were built in the heyday of the London County Council and the Greater London Council. Those were the days when all councils had large home building programmes, and after the two wars when London faced a similar housing crisis. That's why Liberal Democrats are proposing that a new form of social rented home be part of the solution for the future. We want to see the Mayor fund a new GLA-led home building programme to construct thousands of new homes, many of which could be in Southwark. This could be funded by extending the current Olympic precept in the council tax. We need new solutions quickly to add to the social rented housing stock and meet the desperate housing need we all see among our residents. A new GLA-led type of social housing could make a real difference. Please support this motion to build more social rented homes in London and especially in Southwark. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ben Johnson to second motion 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You're doing an excellent job in these slightly chaotic circumstances. Although I'm enjoying the evenly balanced chamber we have here. It's just like the good old days. I can't hear you. Is there someone else here?
Councillor George, you're eating to your time.
Yeah.
Much as I love your compliments.
I only wrote this 10 minutes ago, that's why. Now, Madam Mayor, we've had some mildly entertaining political theatre tonight. In this case, with this motion, we have a Lib Dem motion on housing, with some sensible points and obviously a couple of political barbs against the council. We now have a Labour group amendment attacking the coalition government elected just a brief 6 years ago, with of course some praise for themselves. Now Labour of course will vote for the amended motion, we'll be compelled to vote against it, we'll all pat ourselves on the back for a job well done. And maybe after a few drinks, as we doze off to sleep, we may wonder, what did we actually achieve today? Because there is a housing crisis in this country, as we all recognise, especially in this city, especially in the London Borough of Southwark. And all parties need to work together to tackle this crisis. The government's making an appalling mistake in its housing and planning bill, and most of us in this chamber are united in opposing the right to buy for housing associations, in opposing the sell-off of high-value council housing, in opposing the pay-to-stay scheme. Well, there's been some limited and welcome movement from the government on this, in opposing government interference in rent setting, and in our strong opposition to starter homes, which are not affordable homes for Southwark residents. And I appreciate this political theatre, but you can't build homes on hot air, Madam Mayor. And the differences between our motion and the Labour amendment are like the differences between the Judean People's Front and the People's Front of Judea. Ill-judged bad joke. It's also very difficult to hold a microphone in one hand and your notes in another when you're turning pages. Anyway, the Housing and Planning Bill has serious consequences. Leather Market JMB in my ward, tenant-managed organisation, houses lots of residents in Grange and Chaucer ward, the first fully financially independent TMO in the country. Its entire existence is at threat from the Housing and Planning Bill. So it's really important we stop the bill. We must enjoy this political theatre, but let's work together to keep building affordable homes in Southwark.
Thank you very much. We have one amendment to the motion. Councillor Lucas Green to remove Amendment B.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is pretty simple, so let's keep this quite straightforward. I think
I'm about to agree with Adele Morris and Ben Johnson. I think 61 out of 63 of us all agree that the housing bill is a pretty incompetent, grossly incompetent attempt to solve the housing crisis. I think I'd probably take it a bit further than that. I think more than just ineffective and incompetent, it's iniquitous and immoral. Because rather than actually trying to tackle the problem, all it's really doing is trying to please Tory voters who can afford to be a homeowner. That's not solving the housing crisis. Likewise, I'm not going to talk about what the Lib Dems didn't do when they were in the council, the homes they didn't build. I'm not going to talk about what they didn't do to fix the housing crisis when they were in government. But what I do object to is the suggestion in the original motion that this Labour Council are not doing anything either to tackle the housing crisis, because we are. So let's look at what we're doing. I think, if we want to change something, we have to talk about what we're doing, not what we're not doing. So, what are we doing? So in the last 5 years, since Labour took over the council, 3,357 new affordable homes have been built so far. In terms of modernising the housing stock that we've got, let's not forget we're the largest landlord in London. We've improved 15,000 homes substantially, and we spent £480 million on making those homes warm, dry and safe. Last year in 2014-15, 186,258 repairs were carried out to those homes, more than any other year. And now 90% of those homes are considered to be decent. So, we're not doing a bad job at affecting the homes that we've already got, but the most important figure is that we will have built 1,500 new council homes at council rents by 2018. And we reiterate our commitment to that. So, rather than deflecting attention from the Tories, who we all agree are creating this housing crisis and are not doing anything to substantially fix it, let's actually get behind what we're doing and do something and change it. So I object to the fact that there is a suggestion that this council is not doing enough and attacking the Labour Council rather than the Tory government. So I would urge you to support our amendment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jasmine Ali, second amendment B, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, the housing bill is set to destroy affordable social housing in London. Look, forcing councils to sell off our homes, replacing lifetime tenancies with tenancies just for 2 years, introducing market rents for everybody except for those on the lowest incomes, putting government support into unaffordable starter homes rather than the new council housing that we desperately need. I cannot imagine what my life would have been like without our council home. It was in the 1970s, and I remember that our family fell upon really hard times. And, even though I was only 6, I can remember the uncertainty, and the sadness and the fear that shaped our lives. And when we finally got the keys to our council house, we were just so happy. And, it's just stayed with me for the rest of my life, really. And the security and confidence that only permanent shelter can bring meant everything to us. But today, many of our constituents face the same threat of homelessness through family breakdown, domestic violence, job uncertainty. But the affordability crisis means that many of these families could end up being shunted out of London. In London, more than 1 in 10 families are on council house waiting lists. The average rent for a family home exceeds 20k a year. Make no mistake, this housing bill will make London housing crisis worse. And that is why I personally hate this bill, and I'll work with anybody in order to, do what the motion suggests. But we're asking all councillors to support this amendment because you can't simply address the atrocities of the housing bill through an increase in council tax. We need a bold and radical strategic plan, like the one advanced by Sadiq Khan, supporting councils and housing associations to do what we're doing in Southwark. We're actually building homes for social rent, supporting councils to enforce new rules to maximise the affordable housing in every new development, to implement the London Living Rent initiative so that our teachers, nurses and families can actually afford to live in London, to support first-time buyers so that our children can actually be able to live in the city that they were born in. Look, we're asking everyone to vote for this amendment. Sorry, I've had a bit of a cold. We're asking everyone to vote for this amendment. You know, it strengthens your motion by referencing, I'm nearly there, Madam Mayor, by referencing Sadiq's radical plan to deliver affordable housing in London. We're asking everyone to support the amendment, including the movers of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the debate is now open for discussion of the motion or Amendment B, and I've got Councillor Mark Williams, who's indicated.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Green and Councillor Ali. I'd like to start off with some consensus and following Councillor Morris's comments. From the questions we had at Cabinet Members' question time before this meeting, it's very clear there's a lot of concern about the Housing and Planning Bill, and particularly the assault on social rented housing in this borough and across London. And we were very welcome along with Councillor Livingston and other Labour councillors from across London to welcome Councillor Morris with open arms into our embrace in the Labour councillors' area of the march and demonstration on Sunday, because there were so few Lib Dem councillors left who couldn't find any. But we welcomed and we stood with you side by side on that one. I would, however, take issue with some of the comments that were made just now in the debate and in the motion itself. This council's absolutely committed to social rented housing. We've secured more social rented housing basically than any other council in the country in the last 5 years. We've got the biggest council house building programme in the country. 1,500 new council homes will be completed by the end of 2018. Yes, we've got 40 in the last few months, and we've got residents already moved in there, and there'll be many, many more coming through in the not too distant future. I also think that the suggestion in the motion, which has come, I think, from Caroline Pigeon, who's a Lib Dem candidate for mayor, who's polling about 3% at the moment, is to use the Olympic precept to help house building. Nice idea, you might think, simple idea. The precept's due to fall out this year, or has fallen out this year. However, the precept was brought in 2006 by the then Mayor Ken Livingston, specifically for Olympic delivery, and the promise was made to Londoners then and London taxpayers then that it would fall out in the financial year that we're in now. And the thought of using a regressive tax, which is what council tax is, to fund council house building, I find appalling. Council house building should be properly funded through prudential borrowing and grant from central government. It's as simple as that. It shouldn't be off the backs of the poor in our borough. It should be through those more sensible financial means. We're also trying to be as creative as a council as we can in the face of the onslaught from the Housing and Planning Bill, and looking at how we can secure genuinely affordable homes, not just social rented homes, but those intermediate homes. Because in Southwark, let's face it, shared ownership doesn't work in the way it has in the past, because land prices and property prices have shot up so much. Which is why I'm delighted to say, and following the meeting Councillor Wingfield had with Southwark and Peckham citizens recently, and I met with them also.
30 seconds.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That we're looking at low-cost home ownership, where people pay a multiple of the local average earnings rather than the market price for a home, which is a much more sensible way to get people into low-cost home ownership, to make sure our social workers and teachers can afford to live in this borough. And that's something that we're actively looking at, and we're going to find a site. So I implore people to support our amendment this evening, to reject using council tax, a regressive tax to build council homes, and thank Councillor Ali and Green for their amendment this evening.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maisie Anderson.
And thank you to Councillor Williams, my glamorous assistant this evening. We've solved one problem over here already. So by and large, I think most of you will agree, I'm someone with a pretty sunny disposition. You'll often see me still smiling, even at the end of a very long meeting, skipping off into the darkness down Tooley Street at the end of planning committee, bright-eyed, eager at early morning campaigning sessions. But unfortunately, you're not going to find that today. I'm actually in a pretty bad mood today, and that's because today I had to listen to a Tory Chancellor deliver yet another Tory budget. It harms the most vulnerable, it strikes fear into the hearts of people with disabilities, it pits the rich against the poor, the young against the old, and North against the South. So, frankly, to be honest, what more can we expect than to be here this evening debating such a gloomy motion about how inner London boroughs such as ours are going to be able to house our residents in the future. And I couldn't agree more with the Lib Dems when they describe the way that the abhorrent Housing and Planning Bill is doing its best to deny those most in need of genuinely affordable homes. But I would, of course, as others have, like to remind them, and as the amendment does in fact remind them, that during the coalition government they did sing quite a different tune, working with the Tories to cut the Affordable Homes Grant and thereby actively hindering the building of socially rented housing. But as always, we shouldn't lose hope, because Labour exists to provide hope and to affect progressive social policy. And unlike nationally, in Southwark, we are a Labour administration. And not only that, but we're an excellent one. Our leader, our cabinet, our officers and our Labour group are working tirelessly, and not to mention very innovatively, to ensure that we do meet our ambitious 11,000 council home building headwinds from both the Tory government and, of course, a Tory mayor. We need to shore up our Labour values here in Southwark. We need to redouble our efforts and find more strength than we ever imagined we were going to have to in order to house the people of this great borough. And critically, we must elect Sadiq Khan as Mayor of London in May. That way, this council can work together with City Hall to make sure that every Londoner has a stable home that they can afford. So it's for this reason that I'm supporting the amendment to this motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anoop Al-Samarai.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think it seems like the bit in the motion that we've put forward that the councillors seem most concerned about was our concern about the rate of progress on the 11,000 council homes over 30 years. And I know the administration gave themselves a nice long lead-in time, but they have been running the council for 6 years and still built less than 100 council homes. The other problem that we've got is whether they are actually at council rents. We have this debate constantly, but in a meeting we had with officers the other day, we were told they were at target rents, the new council homes which have been built, which is different from council rents. The other concern we have is about double counting. So effectively, these council homes are being built from money which is taken in on-lieu payments from developments which would have had affordable homes anyway. So the community is losing out on affordable housing and then getting it back in council homes. So that's not additional affordable housing in the community. The other problem that we have is that the way it alters mixed communities in Southwark. So actually, what ends up happening is you're allowed 100% luxury flats in one place, and then the affordable housing, or the council housing, is squeezed onto existing estates where we know residents haven't even been consulted in some situations, and developers get away with doing whatever they want. So there are a number of concerns about this policy. They haven't been addressed, and that's why our motion acknowledges that we support having more homes, but we need to really look closely at how it's being done. It's not easy, we're not saying it is, and therefore there needs to be a bit of honesty about how it's being done. We also need to make sure that we don't allow developers to get away with not building 1 in 3 new homes affordable every time. The other point I wanted to pick up on was the point about Caroline Pidgeon's campaign. Firstly, we've said this evening how wonderful it is that people are councillors in Southwark, and I think we should recognise that Caroline did serve in this borough for many years, and we should be delighted that a Southwark councillor is currently standing for Mayor of London, and I think we should all be proud of that, because the experience she's got from being a councillor in Walworth, she uses in City Hall every day of the week. So I am a huge fan of Caroline, and I think we're very lucky to have her there representing people in this community. I think it's right that £1.50 a week, if it was possible to put it towards the Olympics, it surely should be possible to put it forwards for the biggest issue every one of us has in our advice surgery every week. So I hugely support Caroline's Olympic precept, and I hope everyone in this room could get behind at least that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Livingstone.
Thank you. I don't need microphone. It was interesting that Councillor Al-Samari was just talking about honesty, because it did seem to be some things. I'm sure it wasn't deliberate, but there do seem to be some things which I'm sure she inadvertently misled people about a little bit. Actually, 159 council homes have been built so far as part of the Council New Homes programme. There's 195 that are on site at the moment as well. So those figures aren't quite correct. I think also when Councillor Summer is saying how terrible it is that we're building new council homes instead of developers having on-site affordable homes, I think we do have to recognise that those affordable homes are the affordable homes that we don't think are affordable. They are those homes at 80% of market rent that her government when they were part of the government, decided was an affordable level, and we've never accepted that as being affordable to people. So I think we do need to put both of those things on record. But I wanted to be a little bit more positive, because I did have two confessions to make tonight. The very first one was actually when I read the motion. I actually looked at it and thought, actually, that's quite an interesting idea about the precept. And I know one or two of my colleagues might be upset about the fact that I thought it was an interesting idea. But then I actually looked at tried to work out what that would actually mean. Yeah, it works out about 20 council homes you would build out of this in Southwark. That is a minuscule amount. That's not going to help us sort out the housing problems we've got. That is a scratch on the surface compared to 1,500 that we built by 2018, the 11,000 we'll have built by 2043. So, this is a minuscule contribution, and what it entails is breaking a promise. The Liberal Democrats, when the precept was put on the Olympics in the first place, and how terrible it was when they were running the council, I remember criticising, saying how unfair it was. Council tax is such an unfair, regressive way of raising council tax. It's outrageous this precept is being raised. Well, I think it's right that if a promise is made, that the precept will only carry on for a period, and at the end of that, it will come to an end, and so Londoners have a limited period they're paying out for that, so that promise is kept. And I know the Liberal Democrats aren't too great at keeping on promises, as we saw through their 5 years in government. But I think those things are worth keeping. The other confession I wanted to make is, to be honest, I don't always, if I'm being 100% truthful, there are some manifestos the Labour Party launches which are brilliant, some less brilliant. I have to say the most brilliant one I've seen in a long time is the one that Sadiq has put forward for housing. I think those things that are put in there, that giving councils real powers to ensure there's real affordable housing built, as we put in this amendment here, is what's really going to make a huge difference. And that's why I think you need to be supporting the amendment.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so in accordance with the timings with the programme motion, we shall now have to move to the vote on this motion. And the rest of the motions as well. So, those in favour of Amendment B, can you please indicate? (42). Those against, thank you. Those against? 14. No amendments. So, Amendment B is carried. I shall now move to the vote on the substantive. Those in favour of the substantive motion, please indicate. 42. And those against? 14. No abstentions. So the substantive motion is carried. Moving on to item 4.2, transport improvements, we move straight to the vote. There is one amendment to the motion. So we move to the vote on that. So those in favour of Amendment C, please indicate. 12. Those against, please indicate. 44. So Amendment C is lost. We shall now move to the vote on the substantive. Those in favour of the substantive motion, please indicate. 42. Those against? 14. No abstentions. So the substantive motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to motion 4.3, low water pressure in Bermondsey. I shall now move to the amendment, so Amendment D. Please indicate those in favour of Amendment D. Okay, so that is carried. Thank you. And substantive, indicate those in favour of substantive. Oh, okay, so that's carried. Okay. Oh, yes, sorry. Amendment E. Those in favour of Amendment E, please indicate. That's unanimous as well. Okay, so that is carried. Okay. And substantive. Can you indicate, please? Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, fine. Moving to motion 4.4, East Street Market. We have Amendment F. Can those in favour of Amendment F please indicate? carried. And then we then vote on the substantive. Those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. And the substantive is carried. Okay, so thank you very much. That concludes the ordinary section of the meeting this evening. And we should now consider the agenda for the extraordinary meeting. Okay. Okay, so I formally now open the extraordinary meeting of the Council Assembly. I have no announcements to make, and I have agreed to accept as late and urgent the report entitled Freedom of the Borough. Anyone wish to make a declaration? No? And we'll note the apologies that were given earlier on for the ordinary meeting. Okay, so as part of the programme motion, the meeting gave its consent to the amendment of the closed report recommendations. That is, to agree paragraphs 4, 5 and 9 to 17, and the withdrawal of paragraphs 6 to 8 of the closed report. Therefore, the revised recommendations are deemed to be moved. I have to remind members that if they wish to speak on any information contained within the closed report, the meeting would have to go into closed session. Does anyone wish to speak? Okay, Councillor Summerine.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor. I just want to make a point that I think Councillor Haber referred to the timing issue earlier, and I appreciate the Labour Whip said they'd rearranged a meeting because the freedoms had been given a few hours before the Constitutional Steering Panel meeting, and so then I gather a meeting was rushed in the next week. And I just think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. And I know Councillor Hubbard's made the point at CSP that actually, why are freedoms of the borough not included on the nomination forms for civic awards? Why is it? It just felt like it was all done a bit behind closed doors at the last minute. I'm sure that wasn't the intention, but as ever, really, I would just urge more openness and transparency about the process, about the fact I understand that anyone in the borough can nominate someone for the freedom of the borough, but I don't think that's brilliantly well publicised. So I would ask that next year's civic awards forms include the possibility of nominating for freedoms of the borough, so it feels like it's a much more open process.
Thank you. I think that's going to be noted. We've all heard what you've had to say, and thank you for that contribution. Does anybody else wish to speak at all? If not, can we just move to the vote on this item, please? So those in favour of the revised recommendations, please indicate. Thank you very much. That is carried. And that's the last item of business. So thank you all very much indeed. 9:50.